X-Men: The Last Stand, the third film in the X-Men franchise, the much maligned sequel. Is it as bad as what I remember? Is it as bad as what you remember? Let's find out in my retrospective review for this one. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to my retrospective review series for the X-Men. Yes, and today we're taking a look at 2006's X-Men: The Last Stand. This film here in the UK opened on May the 5th of that very year with a 12A rating and a runtime of 1 hour and 44 minutes. Gone was Bryan Singer from the director's chair. He was replaced by Brett Ratner. Bryan Singer went on to pastures greener, or so he thought. He thought that he may be able to help you believe that a man could fly again when he went off to DC, Warner Brothers, to direct Superman Returns. Simon Kinberg here is on writing duties with Zach Penn yet again. And most of the people from the original films come back. Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier, Hugh Jackman as Logan, the Wolverine, Halle Berry as Storm, Famke Janssen returns after her death in the last film, Ian McKellen is back as Magneto, Anna Paquin returns, Rebecca Romaine, and they're joined by the likes of Kelsey Grammer as Hank McCoy, Beast, Vinnie Jones as the Juggernaut, Elliot Page was Ellen Page back then as Kitty Pryde, and Ben Foster as Angel. So this film it opens up. It begins several months after the events of the last film, as you may recall. Jean Grey died. She sacrificed herself to save her former X-Men. And Cyclops, he's gone into a bit of a depression. And and the film starts there. That's what we come into. And as the story progresses, we're given two stories to follow in this film. One that sees the return of Jean Grey. She comes back and immediately dispatches of Cyclops. She kills Cyclops. Reason being is that James Marsden had conflicting schedules on another film, Superman. And yeah, so he's dispatched straight away. So you've got the return of Jean Grey, and then you've got this other storyline where humans have created a cure for mutant kind, a cure that will erase them of the mutant gene and make them normal again. And it's being weaponized. It's being put into guns and all things like this. Obviously, this goes against what Charles Xavier wants. This goes against what Magneto wants. So, yeah, again, the two of them kind of team up to try and get Jean Grey on board, to try and bring her down. And this results in the death of Charles Xavier as well. Although it doesn't, because lo and behold, there is an end credit scene where you see Dr. McTaggart and the potential of him waking up in the body of someone else who happens to look like him, his twin brother. So you got all this sort of stuff going on. Now, this film here, it's great to talk about films that are not particularly great. And this film is much derived. I mean, this film gets panned massively for a lot of reasons, for a number of reasons, and I can see that point of view completely. I mean, you've got two stories here. You've got the Jean Grey story, the Phoenix Saga, which in the comics is a classic story. I mean, this is a big story. The Phoenix Saga is a big story in the X-Men comics. It's a big deal. And here, it isn't done justice whatsoever. And then on the other hand, you have this wonderful story about a cure, a mutant cure, and the ethics that come into play with that, and the turning it into a weapon, and the bigotry and hatred towards mutants. and everything revolving around that. So thematically, out of the two stories, that story is the stronger of the two. And this is where this film falls down, is that it gives you two stories that honestly don't really interconnect. The Jean Grey stuff, the Phoenix Saga, doesn't really connect with this story of a cure, which is more of a sort of street level kind of storytelling, if that makes sense, rather than some big ominous threat, special effects threat. And they should have separated the two, and this is the problem with the film, because this film here, to be honest, it's not a bad movie. It's not as bad as what you recall. It's not as bad as what I recall. You know, this is a decent ending to that first trilogy of films, but it hasn't got the strengths of the previous two films. That's without a doubt. This film here sat with a critic score of 57% on Rotten Tomatoes and 61% from audiences, so it wasn't really liked and adored. But yet all the cast still deliver in their roles within the film, but the film just tries to give you too much, and really what it should have done was ejected one of these storylines and just gone with the other. Me personally, I would have ejected the Jean Grey Phoenix Saga stuff to bring that back for another film, and just focused on this more sort of a grounded story about this cure, about it being weaponized and all this sort of stuff. And this film, like I said, it throws in some fantastic themes in this sort of a thing. You've got mutants who don't want to be mutants. You've got the young scenes with the young Angel cutting his wings off. He's cut them off and this sort of a thing, and he's the son of the fella who's developed the cure. There's a mutant that's in holding that has the ability that when other mutants come near him, he takes away their powers and drains them, and basically they're human in front of him. And this is what they're using him as the basis of developing this cure. So thematically therein you have some fantastic storytelling. The Jean Grey stuff, like I said, the Phoenix Saga should have been a big spectacle of a movie. And you just don't get it here. Even though, again, Famke Janssen gives a fantastic performance as Jean Grey. But funnily enough, when watching it, the comparison between her and Wanda Maximoff and her alter ego of the Scarlet Witch is so much on display that these two characters just seem almost interchangeable at this juncture. Hugh Jackman obviously delivers in the role of Wolverine, as he always does. You've got some powerhouse performances from Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart in the parts that he's got. Vinnie Jones, unfortunately, he is somewhat miscast as the Juggernaut. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then you got Rebecca Romijn, who unfortunately about halfway through the film is dispatched of. And again, this is for reasons of her having other commitments to record other films elsewhere, because this film was very much rushed into production. So after her getting shot with the gun with the cure in it, you don't see her again apart from a brief second on a TV screen where she's bubbling up Ian McKellen and where they're sort of housed. So this film looks spectacular. I mean, there's some great special effects on show in this movie, but then there's other silly bits, like when the moving of the bridge, Golden Gate Bridge, looks fantastic, but then everyone knows that it goes from being daylight to being nighttime like this. Literally in a matter of seconds that happens, and there's no getting around bits and pieces like that. So out of the three films, yes, this is the weakest of the trilogy, but to be honest, it's not as bad as what a lot of the films that Marvel and DC are knocking out today. There's some worth in this movie. There's some fantastic themes, and there's a brilliant film hidden within this movie here. It's just unfortunately it's been bogged down by two storylines that are not really cohesive to one another and help one another out. One of them should have been ejected, but it was an enjoyable watch. The film cost $210 million to make, and it went on to make $460 million at the worldwide box office. Now, for this would have been a sort of not a break in the X-Men franchise, but this is where they started looking after this to go into solo movies, and they thought about doing both a Magneto solo movie and a Wolverine solo movie. Obviously, you know, we got the Origins movie of Wolverine, and that will be what I will be reviewing next week at the same time on the Friday evening at 6 p.m. You can expect X-Men Origins Wolverine. So down below in the comments, let me know your thoughts on this film. Have you watched it recently? That's what I'd like to know. Do you like this one? Because I think that it gets a lot of hate for no reason. It's not... After rewatching it now, I haven't watched it for probably about 15 years. I don't think I've watched this since the beginning of the MCU, I'll be honest. That's 2008 at least. So I don't think it's that bad. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care all. Goodbye.